Alright, last video was a silent one. Just kind of walked around and showed you some stuff. This one I'm going to talk a little bit, hopefully not too much, but kind of explain where I'm going with this and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So I think in one of the other videos I had said that my seatbelt deals, they were just basically right here. And when I took them off, they were already rusting underneath. So let's fast forward a few years, and I get in a wreck and my baby girl's in the back, and basically that thing rips through because it's all rusted, rips right on out of the sheet metal. This is 20 gauge sheet metal. It's super flimsy. So having boxed this with 1/8 inch steel, I thought, well, I'll just put it in there, box that in, weld that in into basically, and that's basically it's under a piece of 1/8 inch plate steel. So it would have to rip it through that, then it would have to rip it through that, and then it would have to rip it through that. Okay, so yeah, you can imagine if that ever happened, you're not going to live through that anyway. But anyway, so what happened when I moved this, I centered it into this box. Well, not knowing that DSE uses this actual point, imagine that, to use their template, and so mine was off because I had moved it, I had centered it. Well, it was off to one way or the other just a little bit, so I went ahead and scribed my lines up, got it close where I thought I needed it, put this back down, put that back in, and you can see this bar here. When I went to put the bar in to begin with, it was going up in the air. It wasn't even, and you can see I cut holes in here, but it was coming up here, touching up and up here. So that means that these were actually pointing up that direction. Well, that's no good. You want your stuff to be square. So I took that back off. You see I ground down on some of the frame rails, bent the flanges down, got those kind of messed around a little bit, ground some off that, got it to where I could lock it down, get it all together like it's supposed to be, and then measured everything out, made sure everything was the way it's supposed to be. Went ahead and put the rear end under here and got that all squared up, which right now it's not because I've been moving it around, but basically I got let's see if I go up a little bit. I'm watching that bubble in the center there. So that right there is perfectly square. That's my panhard bar. It's perfectly level with the rear end. Then I measured. It's really kind of windy outside. It's beautiful though. So then what I did was I dropped these bars here that come into here, dropped them down here, and then took another piece of this rod and ran it all the way through. Then measured from that rod down to that rod all the way across to make sure everything is perfectly square. So right now it's perfectly square. So what I did is I went ahead and popped 3/16 holes here and here in a couple places. That way I can put it back exactly where it's supposed to be. So what I'll do is I'll take this all off, fit my trunk back in there where it's supposed to be. Then I'll drill from underneath and I'll find my holes here, and then I can have my little pin areas to where I can hold it down to where now I can go ahead and do the final holes for the final weld basically. However, before I do that, thinking ahead, thinking forward more, these torque boxes, we talked about those. They're right under here. You can see, maybe you can see there's a whole bunch of little spot welds all through here. There's one there, there's one there. So I'm going to have to cut these spot welds because like everything else, it's bare metal in between. So I have to do the same thing. Because that part of the car is going to get, water's going to hit it. You could seam seal it, I guess, and maybe it'll last for a while until the seam sealer gets, old and cracks and whatever, but still got bare metal under there. So for me, I'm just going to take that off, sandblast it, prime it, and weld it back on. That, I think, should be the last thing that I have to take off, I hope. Those there, I considered that, but being that they're inside the car, I think that I'll probably be okay. I may take a syringe and maybe run some epoxy down in here and under here, and like that. I don't know. And yeah, I could take that off and do the same thing. I don't know if I will or not. I'm getting a little bit, it's like, where do you say, okay, enough's enough, just get on with it? And I've been there for a long time, it seems like. So anyway, I'm making progress, but kind of just give you an idea how I've got this set up. Another thing was finding center. So what I did was, this was all taken off. I took my laser and I found the center of the frame jig right down through here. This is the center of this, center of that. There's another center back there that I set. And so then finding the center of that, I measured out side to side and made sure that this was exactly the same as it is on the other side. And the way that you can adjust that with this is cool. And I'm learning as I go, because I didn't really know that much about how these things work. But so this panhard bar has a swivel link right here, and basically I just loosened that up, took this out, spun it out, and it'll allow you to move your rear end side to side, however, to center it. And then these links in here are adjustable, so you can move it back and forth, or you can set your pinion angle and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty easy deal. I mean, they made it really user friendly, I guess you could say. The reason I went with the Ford 9-inch is because what they call center chunk, I'm sure there's another name for it, but I've heard it called center chunk. You can change them out. So if I want 373s, I can have a 373 center chunk, pop it right out of there, and have that. Or if I want to go 411s or something different, I can have another center chunk, depending on what the track is. If the track's short, or if it's I need a taller gear, shorter gear, whatever. So that was my thinking on going with the Ford 9-inch, because 12 bolts, at least the ones I've seen, you can't really do that. You have to change out the ring and pinion and all that kind of stuff. So this just comes out as one chunk. You throw it off in the corner, grab your other chunk, put it back in there, seal it up, put your fluid in, and you're good to go. You can do that at the track. So anyway, that was my thinking there. The reason I went with the Ford. And the Ford 9-inches have always been known to be really strong and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's a real quick rundown on what I've got going on. And so from here, I'm going to go ahead and cut those torque boxes off. And then I need to think ahead from there about my subframe connectors, because I got subframe connectors that are going to come off this frame and come through the torque boxes, or attached through them somehow. So I need to think that through, and how's that going to work, and so I got to do some homework. But anyway, so yeah, that's what's going on, and that's where I'm at, and I'll talk to you guys later. See ya. That sure is shiny. What do you think? That is what you call a torque box. You can see where my frame came in there, and I marked around it. So that's what was gonna rust pretty quick, unless I would have seam sealed that. So I'm just telling you guys, I don't care what you do to your car, if you want it, whatever. I'm just telling you, these parts, and these are some of the best parts you can get. They're not protecting the inside. They're welding them all together with a little spot welder, and then they're doing whatever they do. This EDP, whatever it is, however they're doing it, it is not getting underneath the sandwiched metal. It's just not. Instead of them actually doing each part completely in the EDP, then putting it up onto the deal and then squeezing it together to where you only have maybe a little bare ring in there, which would be fine. Because that's the way they used to do it from the factory back in the 60s. And I have proof of that because they galvanized the insides of the rockers. And where I pulled my rockers apart, everywhere that they pinch welded, it was a perfect circle of rust. Everything else, all the galvanized, was perfect. Looked like this, except it was galvanized. It was all perfect except for the little place where they burned the galvanized off with the heat, and it was a perfect circle of rust. So, I mean, I know people probably are not happy about this, and I'm not happy about it. I mean, look at all the extra work I'm having to do. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, really. But just so you guys are aware, that's what's going on. And that's why I'm taking all these parts apart. That's why I did the whole bottom of the trunk and all that kind of stuff. Because this is what we get. This is what we're getting.